I recently started to notice a shift in conversations, particularly with the over 90-year-old set. I've started to hear a kind of lament for the world, or perhaps more accurately, I've started to hear a real grief over the loss of a world they once knew. One person said to me, for instance, "I really don't recognize the world anymore. My values are not reflected in the world." The experience is not always expressed quite so clearly, but the lament still comes through, often in poignant and profound ways. There's a kind of deep recognition that something has really changed. Maybe it's this similar kind of recognition reflected in a different way in different quarters in recent popular slogans like "Make America Great Again" or "Take Back Canada." I heard it again this week from a senior in our community, and what was striking was that it came a day after I had a very similar conversation with a young adult. The Gen Z 20-something expressed her dismay at the world, using the word hopeless along the way. "I was radicalized during COVID," she told me, "from the paradox of being a minimum wage worker who was deemed essential." COVID, I think, exposed a lot of uncomfortable things about our society. For this person, it was the cognitive dissonance of being called essential on the one hand, while being at or very near the bottom of society. The affordability crisis that we are living through continues to have a significant impact on her day-to-day life. She described the hopelessness of many of her peers who had been taught a kind of societal promise: if you go to school, work hard, you will climb the ladder of success and prosperity. The experience is that that promise is a lie. If you can't reach the first rung of the ladder, you can't climb it. Too many people turn that hopelessness inward, such that we have a widespread crisis in mental health and addictions. Others turn it outward in protest around things like climate change and international relations. Note, for instance, the student encampments across North America in protest of the war in Gaza. Now, these two conversations came on the heels of me not being able to stop thinking about part of a podcast I heard recently, just last weekend. It was an introductory conversation for an online course about faith and politics, with Tripp Fuller from Homebrewed Christianity, Diana Butler Bass, and Tim Whitaker from the New Evangelicals. "What do we do," Tripp wondered aloud, "when the challenges outrun our agency?" Agency is the ability of an individual or an organization to act on their will. It's the power to effect change in our lives and in the world. The greater our agency, the greater our sense of control. So what happens when the challenges in our lives or in our society or in our church, when those challenges outrun our agency, our ability or our perceived ability to do something about them? Bringing together the personal with the structural or institutional, faith with politics, Tripp summarized his thesis this way. I quote, "Democracy isn't just taking a position, but it's the art of taking, forming, listening, and reforming solutions across difference. And that means it's a deliberative process and not a performative one. And when you don't feel like you have agency as a political party or as a church or as an individual, the more you recognize a lack of agency, the more your identity becomes performative rather than deliberative." Let's unpack it a bit more. Deliberation is an approach to politics, I've read, in which citizens, not just experts and politicians, are deeply involved in community problem solving and public decision making. More than debate, deliberation involves careful thought and discussion, in making a decision. Another word I might use is discernment, understood as an extended, prayerful decision-making process based on judgment and thoughtfulness rather than on opinion. A deliberative process needs people to come to the table, to learn about an issue, to talk with, not past each other, to consider diverse points of view, to discover key tensions and values, and to spark new ideas before making a decision. Such a process is only possible if the people involved come out from behind themselves, move out of the performative, and bring their real selves to the conversation. Performative acts or behavior are, according to Collins Dictionary, intended to show how a person wants to be seen by others rather than who they really are. This is core to any of the performing arts, of course. It's what makes for a great concert or play or dance show. In politics, though, in activism or community building of any kind, with our increasing need to address difficult and complex problems, a performative approach is detrimental. This is so because it means doing things for show, so as to bolster one's own image or make a positive impression on others. A performative approach means talking a good game or making outward gestures just to create or maintain an image. Some people critique the practice of offering land acknowledgements, for instance, as kind of merely performative. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case, but it does kind of help point to this distinction between performative acts and substantive changes arrived at through a deliberative process. Appoint for us a king to govern us, the elders of Israel ask Samuel. Samuel's children differ from him. They do not follow in Samuel's ways. Now, in those days, Israel was a tribal confederacy surrounded by other peoples. So much more than kind of keeping up with the Joneses or that desire for a king to be like other nations, this was a response to a significant external threat to their safety and security. In other words, the challenges the elders faced were outrunning their agency. And in their increasing anxiety about it, they turned not to deliberate within their community, with the Lord, with Samuel, and with Samuel's children. The only thing they could think of, as Tripp concluded in his podcast, was a savior complex, the one true king, someone who's like above it all, beyond the law, an exception, outside the challenging reality they faced. And the Lord they knew wasn't really doing it for them. So give us a king, the elders of Israel insist, who may govern us and go out before us and fight our battles. I really don't recognize the world anymore. I hear seniors say, my values are not reflected in the world I see. The young cry, I will never get ahead, never know stability or prosperity, never own a home, the whole world is burning, life is hopeless. When challenges outrun our agency, we are tempted to turn to the performative, to talk a good game, to bolster our image that others may think well of us. Our first thought is often to anoint someone as king, to perform for us, to fight our battles, manage our anxiety, even if it's all a show. Deliberative process offers another option, another way to face complicated, thorny challenges. Deliberation across difference is hard work. It's uncomfortable to hear truly divergent beliefs, values, practices. It's vulnerable and awkward to work through our difficult feelings so that we can think clearly, carefully, deeply, and in community. Deliberation takes time and it takes trust. It is hard. It also can be, might be, I believe that it is worth it, because there is hope in authentic conversation. Human connection is the balm that we need to heal our souls and heal our world. Connecting across difference and working in community with God and with the people around us is how we can address the big questions, the tough challenges, the thorny problems of our world and our church. We are united in our dismay. Through deliberation, we can also unite to make a real difference in the world. This, my friends, is my hope.